A new minor iOS update has been released today in iOS 12.1.1, which actually has quite a bit more features than you would expect from a 0.1.1 update. Obviously, very small, usually just bug fixes, but there is some stuff, most notably the dual SIM on the new iPhones and some other little features like that. So today we're going to be installing it on the iPhone 6 and iPad Mini 4 because those are my iOS devices, and it's going to be kind of an informal video. You guys have seen these before. We're just going to go through the download process, see how long it takes, those kind of things, and then I'll probably have a formal review of iOS 12.1.1 a little later, so we'll go ahead and do that right now. We will start the iPhone 6 first because it always seems to take longer on the iPhone than the iPad. So here we are connected to a pretty high-speed Wi-Fi network, so it should not take all that long. This update requires a Wi-Fi. Yeah, I am connected to Wi-Fi. It's being dumb. It's cool. Don't know why it's doing that. Let's go ahead and reset settings. So I'll leave this in and not edit out of the Final Cut because I want to show you everything, the update experience, especially being stupid. So I'm hitting that button real fast while it's still there, and you guys actually don't get to see my passcode, unfortunately. So here we go. Update is requested. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer on the Apple Watch here for how long the iPhone 6 is going to take. But that's not until after I've achieved my stand goal by standing behind the camera. I mean, I guess that does work. Stopwatch here, and we'll go ahead and start this for the iPhone 6. And it says it's going to be about a 25-minute update based on the current conditions. Of course, this is going to vary a lot based on, your conditions like the internet speed and things like that are kind of out of your control. But this will give you a general idea of just the size of the update. And of course, that tends to be pretty random and vary a whole lot. It's probably not going to take 35 minutes. Although there is somewhere that I have to go in about 20 minutes, so if these aren't done in about 20 minutes, then we are just going to have to screw the whole timing it part, but we can still finish the video later. So let's go ahead and do this on the iPad too. So it's about a 300.5 megabyte update on the iPad, just FYI. So we're going to go ahead and install. Again, no password viewing for you. And we're beginning the install, or the download. There is a difference between the download and the install. So here you can see the iPhone drop down from 35 minutes all the way to 8 minutes right here, just as we were starting the iPad. So obviously, that's going to be pretty not very accurate, so I'd never really trust that. See, it's down to 4 minutes now. The iPad is starting off at 23 minutes, but I'm really hoping it's not actually going to be that long. So that's about that at the moment. So we're just going to go ahead and let those run for a little while and see. It seems to be going pretty dang fast, which is expected because, like I said, it's a 0.0.1 update, which those are usually just bug fixes. Basically, very, very small patches is all that these are. And there is quite a bit of feature you do get in here, but, it's pretty basic stuff. Our iPhone 6 here is now onto the update preparation part, which is basically when it gets to about the halfway point, because the number of minutes remaining that it estimates that's how long until it reaches the halfway point. And once you reach the halfway point, then it's done downloading, and it's just offloading it into a different part of the memory to prepare for the actual installation, because there are pretty much 3 phases of software/firmware updates. Downloading it from the server onto your device, moving it from the place it's being stored on your device to somewhere where it's ready to then install, and then actually completing the installation, which is the part where you can't use your phone. So we are up to phase 2 here, and just another hilarious thing, it's been about 30 seconds since the iPad said 25 minutes, and now it says 2 minutes, so, I mean, that's great. Gotta love this accuracy. The iPad is now on the preparing update phase as well, and as you can see, it kind of went zoom mode right past the halfway. It's about the same spot that it is now on the iPhone. Like I said, historically, the iPad is a lot faster at downloading updates than the iPhone, at least in my opinion, or in my experience. So it is likely that the iPad will actually end up passing this and finishing beforehand, but we'll see how exactly that works out. Alright, just as I predicted, the iPad has really pulled ahead here. In about 3 seconds, it's beginning the installation, and there we go. So that's something you always want to be careful with when you're doing software updates. is that if you leave it like this and you don't want it to install, you have to be there to cancel the install within 10 seconds, or it just goes ahead and installs it anyway, which is what it's doing right now, verifying the update. And so it's actually been about 11 minutes since we started, and the iPad is already done with the download and is now on the installation process. Part 3. So, meanwhile, the iPhone over here is still chilling at part 2. It's about that far through, so it's still got a ways to go, especially since the progress bar on our iPhone here is a much smaller progress bar than the iPad. That's why it's kind of hard to compare them sometimes. And then here, I always like using my iPad horizontally. I've really never used my iPad vertically except for when software updates are being installed, because it always shows up here vertically. And so there we got our progress bar here, about 12 minutes in beginning this installation process. I'm expecting this installation will be pretty quick because it's a 0.0.1 update that I've mentioned before, so it's usually pretty simple, firmware update stuff. So hopefully it shouldn't take that long to actually load it on the iPad memory. Alright, so we're about 15 minutes in, so it's been about 3 minutes is what it took for the iPad here to finish the first part of installation. Usually there is a second bar, and there is that second bar there. So that's on the part 2 of installation. Part 2 usually goes a bit faster. You can see it's already starting to move across there. Meanwhile, over on iPhone land, poor iPhone 6. I'm really not sure how much life is left in this poor phone because it's not even done with the download yet, so that's a big rip. Alright, iPhone just finished the downloading process, but you have to have at least 50% battery or be connected to a power source for installation, so I'm going to have to go get the power adapter for this phone real quick. But yeah, the iPad's about that far through, so good job, iPad. Yeah, hopefully it won't be that much longer here. Alright, 2 things just happened while I was getting that cord, so let's go ahead and start the installation on this iPhone first, so that can be all good and ready to go. So we're now on to the verification of the update now that we're on the power source. And the iPad has just finished, so we've got a little splash, no splash screen or anything with this update. Obviously just a minor update, so we do get a notification here that the iPad has been updated to a software version 12.1.1, which is incredibly difficult to see on this camera because it has terrible autofocus. But yeah, that's about all you get, and you have to enter the passcode. So first little minor change I noticed here, they've significantly changed the font here. It's a much blockier and much smaller than usual. It usually takes up a lot more space, so that's just a little thing I noticed there. And here we are into the actual iOS here, and yeah, that's about it. So let's go ahead and check, make sure everything's done correctly. And yep, on to iOS 12.1.1. So in total on the iPad, that took about 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and go through a few of the things that are supposedly new here for the iPad. So if you go into News, which is an app I have not entered in a very long time, mainly because my subscriptions are really cluttered. Oh, we got a whole new splash screen here. That's really nice. Okay. And so there is apparently the option to hide the sidebar, which you didn't get before. But I'm not seeing exactly how you go about that. Oh, it's that button. So that's a new addition in this software version. So you can get rid of that sidebar if it's impeding your news reading, I suppose. There are also a lot of new options within FaceTime, little changes and tweaks and options. That's probably the main focus, I think, of their tweaks for this update. But unfortunately, I can't show you any of that right this second because I don't have anyone to FaceTime right this second, obviously. But I mean, that's all there. That's pretty much all there is for me to show you on this particular iPad, the iPad, or any iPad really, because for the first time in a while, this poor old iPad mini 4 actually got all of the new iPad features for this update. A lot of the tweaks in this update, though, were focused on the iPhone XS, XS Max, and XR, the new iPhones for this year, so there's not really going to be much of anything to look at with this relatively old, by today's standard, iPhone 6. But I mean, this still functions fine, so I'm not really looking to upgrade anytime soon, although it is really slow with software updates, evidently. Alright, unfortunately I must go ahead and leave. Like I said, I have something to do, so I may not actually be able to get the times for both of these. We got the time for the iPad, did not get the time for the iPhone, so that's a big rip. But yeah, it's just this far through the first install. What? Did you guys see that? Am I hallucinating? Okay, that got caught on camera. About to start the second update screen here. But yeah, I pretty much got to go. So I guess if it finishes installation while it's in my pocket on the way to my destination, then I'll maybe screenshot that for you. Not exactly sure. It might stop installation when I unplug the power source. I'm a bit concerned. Well, I'm going to go get ready and see what goes on. Now here you can see the screenshot I took of iPhone updated to 12.1.1. It's just that little splash screen there. And you can see the slightly changed, and I've already kind of gotten used to it, so it's not even really all that noticeable. Slightly changed font. I think it just went down in size a little bit, and there's that blown up notification for some reason. It expands downward when you do that. And other than that, there wasn't really much of anything to see here that's new. Most of the changes for the iPhone are for the newer iPhones, and so therefore this iPhone 6 here is not going to see much of any changes. But that doesn't mean that if you have an older device that's not going to get noticeable adjustments, you shouldn't download this, because you are going to get those security improvements and stability improvements and bug fixes. All that stuff is important, even if you don't really notice it, so I would still recommend always updating anyway. So that's that. As before mentioned, probably going to do an iOS 12.1.1 review more formally later in the week after I've had a few days to work with iOS 12.1.1 and see exactly what's going on with all that. But yeah, I do recommend you download this because it's a pretty quick update, and you are going to get some nice bug fixes and security improvements with not much of any expense to device performance, at least I think. We're going to have to use it a few days to see. So let me know in the comments, how long did your iOS 12.1.1 take to download? Was it more or less than mine? And are you looking forward to my review of 12.1.1? What are your first impressions? Anything. I'd be happy to read through and respond to all those. And yeah, I'll be here later. Bye-bye.